As certified life coaches with 45 years combined experience in human resources, Jen Trum and Catherine Fry have both experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, both personally and professionally. What they both know to be true is this: our mental, physical, and emotional health are the essential building blocks in order to thrive and shine in the field of HR. In a first of its kind podcast, we'll be getting real and we'll discuss and share what has contributed to both our success and struggles, with the goal of inspiring women around the globe to stand tall and take the necessary action to both thrive and shine in HR. Here are your hosts, Jen and Catherine.
Hello, and welcome to Thrive and Shine HR. We are Jen and Catherine, and so happy for you to be here just before we came on live when the little blue, 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 blue is going. Unfortunately, we are not yet live on Facebook, so we will get that going later, but we are live on YouTube and LinkedIn. So hello, Catherine. Good morning.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic too. We were giggling before we went live because this happened last week, that we checked in with StreamYard. We were assured that things were working on StreamYard, and that's our streaming service for our podcast. And they I shouldn't say promised. They said that it rarely happens, but it was definitely on Facebook's end. So we were joking that, I was saying, I'm going to have to ask for help in a different way. And that is true. I went to StreamYard last week. This week, I'm going to Facebook. We are going to fix this, Jen.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, well, today is about asking for help. So the irony. So I wanted to start with so much gratitude for you, Catherine, and to share with you when you and I first met. Actually, the second time we ever met was me reaching out to you in a very very blind way and asking you if you were interested or open to the opportunity in collaborating with me. And it was asking for quote unquote help in a way that I had never before. And I think in terms of this podcast and in terms of how we've come to be, how we've blossomed, thrive, and shine HR, I thought I would share that little ditty. And I would love to hear your kind of memory of that experience of me reaching out to you for help. Did it feel what? Yeah, I'm going to stop talking.
No, you don't have to stop talking. I love that, because I think it was the second time we actually connected, because the first time, I could be very wrong on this, I believe I reached out to you and asked for help. You had the most inspiring group on Facebook, really bringing a community of HR women together. And I was doing the same thing. Mine's a little bit different. Mine's about empowered HR women. So it's just a slightly different, topic of cohesion, so to speak, support versus empowerment. It's just a little bit different. And your group just amazed me. And I was like, how are you doing that? And I'm still just in love with your group. I'm in love with the way you connect with your members. So what I do remember, I reached out first and you reached out. What I do remember about, now that you brought it up this morning, is you didn't hint. You were very clear in your articulation, in your asking for some help. And I think that's a big difference in actually getting the help that we want and need, and how we tend to go about it.
Yeah.
It's just how we've been socialized, how we've been wired. And you set such an example for people of how to actually ask for help. So I just love that.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. I mean, I think asking for help when it comes to anybody, asking for help is one of the most difficult things that we can do. And, I think the more that we can talk about it, the more that we can have conversations, the more that we can normalize, hey, you know what, putting ourselves out there. Yes, sometimes we have the fear of rejection. We feel like we're losing control. There's all of these things that can
Yeah.
come up for us, but how can we continue to like dig deep and ask for the things that deeply we desire for? So what we want to do today, just like we do on all episodes, is we've got some questions we'll be asking each other, and then we'll also be talking about the poll. So there's a poll that
Yes.
we do each week. We'll be talking about that here in a little while. So first question that I have for you, Catherine, is when you consider yourself 5 years ago, still in
Mhm.
human resources before getting into coaching,
Oh, geez.
where did you most struggle when it came to asking for help?
Oh gosh. I mean, what's really coming up for me? 5 years ago, my struggle was with compensation.
Mm,
It truly was, and that was affecting a lot of things. It was affecting my relationship with my boss. It was affecting how I was showing up at work. We had the data that was showing I was grossly underpaid comparatively to other directors in my pay range, comparatively to directors. At that time, I had 22 years of HR experience 5 years ago. And I was asking for help with my compensation in a way that was not working. It wasn't working.
mm,
And that was my biggest struggle 5 years ago. And it took several years. And that's just one example. I mean, that's just what's kind of flashing up in my brain right now. And last night when I was in your amazing Facebook group and just watching these women one woman was very brave and said, I've been in HR for 25 years and I'm done. I'm burned out. How do
mhm,
I pivot out of HR? So I know this doesn't answer your 5 year ago question, but it answers the 2 year ago question. And I just found that really, really fascinating. And I'm so proud of that woman who posted that she needed some help. She's not sure how to get the help. And what was amazing to me is how many other women started following and commenting and saying, you know what, me too. So we still
mm,
have a massive, massive burnout issue in HR, which only reiterates the point of this podcast that we are still not utilizing, understanding, or capitalizing on the art of asking for help in HR. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so burned out, or we wouldn't be feeling so uncertain about where we need to go next. If we ask for help, if we go to the right people, we won't feel all this consternation and all this stuckness, so to speak.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, the stigma associated with it, right? I think in HR in particular, the more conversations that I've had with others in HR, women, men, anybody, the
Yeah.
more that you really kind of recognize this underbelly around the stigma of asking for help when you're in HR, because you're already the middle person, right? Middle woman, middle
Yep.
man. And
Yes.
so yeah, I think it exasperates it in a way we just don't talk about enough. So yeah, I'm so grateful for the post. I'm
Absolutely.
so grateful for the comments, and yeah, I'm really grateful that you brought that up. So
Well, what about you? I mean, what about you 5 years ago?
so
Or is there a certain timeline where you just saw this massive shift? I don't know. However you want to answer that one.
yeah, I think for me, my biggest thing that I can look back on in my life, regardless of being in HR or just being a human, is
Yeah.
around the fear of rejection and judgment. And I am, from childhood all the way up. And I think, so much is kind of ingrained in us in terms of our childhood, but fear of rejection and abandonment and,
Wow.
judgment and that sort of thing are deep, deep, deep fears within me and most of us, right? But for me, I really recognize that when it came to my relationships in the workplace, especially with like my immediate manager. So I'm going to go back a little more than 5 years only because this has been something that has been evolving for me for about 15 years. And I had a
Okay.
leader when I first got out of my graduate program and started working for a company. And I worked for a gal named Donna. Donna, if you're listening, you are amazing. But she was the first type of leader who really helped me push past my barriers around asking for help
Uh,
from my leader in a way that really disarmed me and helped me feel safe about it. And that is something that is so rare in a leader and is so rare just in the world sometimes, where those people that you know that kind of just by knowing them, Catherine, you're this way with me, but those people that you know that just by knowing them, that armor kind of breaks down because
yes,
you feel safe, you feel
yes,
comfortable to be able to put something out there even if it's not a hit, right? And when it comes to that leader relationship, that person that you are working with who you want to mentor, you want to help mentor you and help you grow, I think that was something that was solidified in me a long time ago. And so I've always been very intentional about the leaders that I work with in organizations and in coaching as well, and anywhere. But in the idea of being able to like deeply feel comfortable that you can ask for help from that leader, I think is
mm,
something that and something that I think I've learned from myself. But it's taken a long, long time.
yeah. I love that you're like, no, I'm not doing 5 years. I'm going back 15 years. But I
Yeah.
love that you had that experience 15 years ago. And that for you, it's knowing there's got to be that element of trust and there's got to be that willingness on the other person's part to actually help. I love that.
Right, right. Well, okay. Well, then let's talk about now. So, you and I,
Ooh.
as we talked about on this podcast, we have gone through a process of becoming life coaches and really
Mhm.
kind of digging underneath our own hoods in so many ways. And what does asking for help look like in your world now compared to what it would have looked like in your past?
It's really interesting. It's a really interesting question. I think for me, and this may sound really nerdy, but I know when I'm getting into mind drama, I know when I can see my brain going toward narratives that aren't useful. Narratives like,
Mhm.
well, that person's not going to help me. They don't have the time to help me. I've asked for help in the past and it hasn't worked. So I'm really, really cognizant of those thoughts. And I'm able to recognize it and quite honestly laugh about it. I do a lot of laughing at myself these days. I used to spend a lot of
Woohoo.
time, yeah, just beating myself up and swirling in that self-doubt. For me, the root of not asking for help was self-doubt. And I see this in my clients as well. It's that perfectionism, it's that procrastination. That's sort of the presenting problem. But what
Mhm.
it actually comes down to, at least in my experience working with 100% of my clients, is that self-doubt. So for me, it's just seeing it for what it is, not beating myself up about it. For me, it's about laughing at myself and then deciding, doing a little bit of an audit and saying, okay, what's actually worked? Where is the evidence that you have successfully asked for help? Where's the evidence that you haven't? What's been the difference? So, how's that going to inform your approach when you need to ask for help? And sometimes it can be really interesting. I asked my brother for help just yesterday. My brother is one of the smartest people on the planet. Just saying, he just is. He's the youngest published organic chemist, which I think is really cool.
Holy
And
cow.
what's that?
I said, "Holy cow."
Holy cow. He's just so smart. He's so smart. And I needed his help. And yesterday, I just straight up asked him for, I had never asked my brother for help, not in our adult lives. And
Oh,
I just asked him from a place, for me, it's a place of love.
yeah.
And yeah, the conversation's ongoing, which is really, really cool and really, really different. Kind of had to get out of my own way on that one.
Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's so hard, and at that kind of deep level, it's that much more, so
Yeah.
much more. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. What about
Well,
you?
yeah, for me, when I look at, I shared kind of my evolution in terms of the leaders that I would seek out where I could feel safe enough to ask
Uh-huh.
for help. But on the other side of that, the one thing that I've really, really noticed, especially in this most recent HR role that I've been in, is if you can find yourself an emotionally intelligent leader, you are winning at the game. And so I have really gotten to a very lucky place in this most recent HR role that I'm in now, where I have a manager who just gets it,
Oh,
just gets it.
amen. Yeah.
And if you out there can't say that, can't say that, which most of us I think really can't say that, then it's really difficult, I think, deep down at the end of the day, to truly feel safe and comfortable to be able to ask for the things that we really need, that we really desire, if that person who we're trying to communicate to doesn't quite fully get it, right? They
Mm,
they get stuck in their head with all the mind drama and judgments and blame and, everything else. And so, yeah, I think for me, that's been such a game changer. And I think when it comes to asking for help at that level, I just feel like, and I've shared this before about like being in HR now versus before my kind of personal growth, but I'm
yeah.
just able to kind of feel so much freer. Like last week, I had a major kind of breakdown at work where we were in the process of implementing a new tech system, a new IT system, HRIS.
Uh-huh.
We're in the process of
Oh, the big one.
the big one, and it's not going well. And there were things that I promised or thought that would, take off, in a
Yes.
certain way, and things are just
Yes.
not going the way that they did. And last
Yes.
week, I went into a senior leadership meeting and literally just kind of threw myself on the sword. And I said, look, y'all,
Oh,
here's what's happening, here's what's going on. And I almost felt like I was kind of out of my body at the time because I was
oh,
doing it to ask for help. I was doing it to my, our marketing director and our finance director and really letting them know what was happening because it did impact them and their teams. But two, the more transparent I can be about the situation and take my ego out of it and just basically say, hey, y'all, here's what's happening, the more that it could diffuse that situation and we could start collaborating about it and we could start, talking. So it just, it helped me see that when you are yourself more emotionally intelligent, you're not getting caught up in the drama, you're not getting caught up in all of the narratives. And instead, you can just really look at the reality of what's in front of you. And then you can just put it out there in such a way that it's not attached to anything. You're not, yeah, I could go on, but it just changes everything. And
I
so
love
that was a long answer, but it's like, just like with you and your brother, I think it was such a relevant situation that just happened where 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have handled it completely different. And the way that I handled it now, I think is something that it just makes me proud. It just makes me feel proud. That's pretty cool.
okay. It's so interesting that you just said the word proud because I do think that that's what asking for help is all about. We just want to be
Ooh,
proud of how we show up. And I think that
ooh,
I
I
do.
like you.
I do because you and I both know we can't control anyone else in this world. And I'm sure many of our listeners aren't working for such an emotionally intelligent boss that you have right now. I mean, that's a whole other topic of make
Whole
sure
nother
you're
topic. I
whole
totally get
other
it.
topic. Yeah. But I love that confidence is a skill. Asking for help is a skill,
Yeah,
and it's something we can develop. It's not something that we either have or we don't have, and they're so
right.
intertwined, they're so interconnected. And when we start asking for help in a whole new empowered way, that's where we successfully end up feeling proud of ourselves. And I think that's
Yeah.
a lot of it. I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're onto something. I like every time we talk, I'm like, there's an episode. There's an episode. It's
Every
like,
time.
this feels like job security to me. I don't know.
I love it.
So let's kind of shift it just a little bit, and I want to talk about like as a coach for women in HR,
Yeah.
why have you found over, your time in helping other women, why is it so goddamn hard for us to ask for help?
Oh, I think I could talk about this forever. I'll try and be succinct. I think there's two main reasons. One is how we've been socialized as women. My clients tend to be between the ages of 30 and 50. And we were socialized, meaning we learned from our mentors, the women we looked up to, perhaps our mother. And those women tried to do it all, tried to take it all on themselves. And there's almost this badge that women wear of volume versus value. We try to
Mm,
do everything,
yeah.
and we forget that we can't do everything. It's so important for us to ask for help. And we have just seen these role models just quite literally Wonder Woman, right? Is it Linda Evangelista? I don't know if I'm remembering her name correctly.
Linda Evans. That's so
Evans,
close.
Linda Evans. Oh, Linda Evangelista, she's that supermodel. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Getting my Lindas confused.
That just
So
might have made my day.
I try to bring some laughter. But just that socialization, I think is one reason. So that's just a matter of realizing just because we were socialized in a way doesn't mean that now as an adult that that's where our power is. That's where our
Mhm.
success is in asking for help, realizing that I am not that person that I was 5 years ago or 15 years ago. Here I am right now. And how do I want to be showing up and asking for
Yeah.
help? And then the other just small nugget, we always hear about fight, flight, fear. No, wait, excuse me. Fight, flight, and flight, fight, freeze. Jeez, got to get my F's out this morning. And I'm sure you've heard this too. There's another one that's a little more recent called fawn. And I think HR practitioners in particular do a lot of people pleasing. We tend to be people pleasers.
Oh.
So we want to get the help for others. We want to help others, but we rarely even see that we're not asking for help. We tend to fawn. We tend to
Mm.
just do this helping of others. And I think that's totally normal. It goes back to socialization. And there's a totally different way to go about it. And that's what I
Yeah.
help my clients do day in and day out, which is really cool.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard of that before. The fight, flight, no, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but that was the first time that it clicked for me around HR and how that's so instinctual for women anyway, right?
Yes.
But being in HR, again, it kind of gets back to what we were talking about. Like, I think there's so much intertwined in like this identity of who we think we should be in HR,
Yes.
that is whoo. Woo, there's a lot to think about there. I love that because, we
Mhm.
really, the more that we can become aware of it, that that we do that and that it's completely normal and natural that that's what we would do. That's what we're socialized to do. That's what we're programmed to do. Now
Yes.
what?
Now
Right?
what? The
Now what?
operative 2 words. Now what?
Now what? So nice.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that. I want to hear more about the now what, but also with your coaching background, how
So
that's impacted how you ask for help or, why you think it's so difficult for HR people in particular to ask for help.
So one thing that I did is, Catherine, you know that I love me some Chat GPT when it comes to prepping. And so I went on yesterday and I asked Chat GPT this question.
Oh, I can't
What are
wait.
the 5 biggest reasons why asking for help is so hard for people along with recommendations on how we can address our fears. So it blew out 5 different reasons. The first one being fear of rejection and judgment,
Okay.
me, right? I mean, that's most of us. The fear of being a burden, right? Like this idea of, not wanting to put others out, the fear of losing control. This one is a massive one for me. And
Ooh.
I know for so many others, especially us, who have that independence in us, the fear of vulnerability, right? Asking for help is weakness.
Yes.
Asking for help is, you're weak and you're less than by asking for help,
Yeah.
and that stereotype around that. And then finally, the fear of being seen incompetent, not
Yes.
enough, not
Yep.
good enough. So all 5 of them were such huge yeses for me. And so when it comes to me now and how I am as a coach, it's really about that, what we were just talking about. We got to be aware of it first. Where are our fears? Where's our own personal underbelly when it comes to why we're not asking for help? Because I think anyone who's struggled with burnout, anyone who's struggled with exhaustion knows that deep down they can't do it alone, right? If they truly want to be the person that they most want to be in their lives and do all that they can for the people that they most care about, they need to find a tribe. They need to have resources and all of that. But yet, these are the reasons why. And so starting to kind of uncover that, bring that out, start talking through kind of how we can break that down in such a way to bring our power back. So I think that in and of itself is what I get, I do just day in and day out, but in HR. And so that's kind of the one thing that now, as someone who, is a coach, but also works in the field of HR, I think one of
Right.
the greatest opportunities that we have in HR is to recognize that skill within ourselves, to bring that out in other people, right? And in those people that we work with, our fellow leaders and teammates, and even our own leaders that we report to, sometimes they need a
Yes.
little help in asking for help, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so the more self-aware that we become, the more that we can just show up with so much more to give. And
Right.
so that is my message through and through, is the more that I kind of give into myself and help myself show up in my best possible way, the more I'm going to help every single person I come into contact do the same for themselves.
Okay. You just hit the nail on the head. I'm thinking about all of my clients who are constantly feeling overwhelmed in HR. And a lot of that overwhelm comes from the constant requests for help. I need help with my benefits. I need help with open enrollment. I don't know who our EAP provider is. I need some help understanding my bill. How often, right? I mean, that is a part of HR. And I think that's the part of HR that we love. We love to help other people. I think part of HR's responsibility, you just said this, is teaching the skill of asking for help, but also it's about self-empowerment. It's
Mhm.
also being that human resources, being resourceful, not trying to answer all of the questions yourself, but pointing the human in the right direction to go to
Yeah.
the actual expert, if that makes sense. I feel
Yeah.
like in
Oh,
a totally, and that's so many of us, especially HR generalists,
yeah.
especially the team of ones. We just feel like we have to have all the answers. It needs to be immediate. If we don't have those answers, we're not smart enough. It kind of all feeds back to that self-doubt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we can help others, helping others isn't necessarily always answering their question right away. It's helping them understand the various resources that are available to them as a human and as an employee, which I think is also a skill. So many skills that we just need to develop and practice. And
Oh
it's so
my
simple
God.
and so complex at the same time.
Yeah, but it's like, here we are making the progress and talking about the things. And like I said in that first story that I gave, it was 15 years that was progress in terms of how I relate to my relationship to my leaders and to those around me. So it's not something that is overnight And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's perfectly okay. So, well, why don't we shift to the poll for this week? How
Oh,
about
let's
that?
do it. Let's do it. Because you're going to be
Okay.
surprising me. I didn't look at the poll, so I can't wait to hear about this.
Oh my gosh, we got the most responses on this one than any other that we've done so far. So this
Not
week we
surprised, Jen.
I said share the type of help you most need in your life,
Ooh,
being deeply and truly honest with yourself, right? Like this, we go there.
we do go
We
there.
are about going there. We're not going to cut corners. And so let's be really honest with ourselves. Where is it we need to be asking for help? So in this poll, we had over 100. I think it ended up being 106 total who responded. So thank
Wow.
you so much for responding. It's really fun because it definitely helps both Catherine and I as we prep, as we get ready for each week. So the first one is the confidence to speak your truth and set boundaries. The
Ooh.
majority of people pick this one. And so, yeah, 45% said the confidence to speak your truth and set boundaries. The next one at 22%, I wish I could share my screen. I'm going to do that next time for those who are watching live. But if you're listening, follow along. All right, the next one with 22% is support with managing your time and energy.
Yeah.
The third one, ensuring you practice self-care. It's like,
Mm.
I think all of us would love to have kind of that voice on our shoulder being like, come on, you need to meditate, you need to exercise, whatever it is. And then finally, the last one was overall mental health support. So, oh my goodness. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I was actually pretty surprised to see the confidence to speak your truth and set boundaries was so high at number one. I thought like overall mental health support, when I was first writing it up, I'm like, like overall mental health support, sure, for sure. And yet it came to confidence. It came,
Mhm.
to the ability to speak our truth, right? Like the ability to like say what's truly authentic within ourselves is number one.
Wow.
And the ability to set boundaries around that truth, number one. So that really sat with me quite a bit over the weekend where I was like, yeah, like I really hear that and I really feel that, especially for those of us in HR. It's a big, big thing. We got to find that confidence. We've got to dig deep to be able to start finding our voice.
I love that. And as you were talking, I wrote down boundaries, time management, essentially self-care and mental health. So those, did I get those right? Those were the top four.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
I would love for our listeners, I cannot remember off the top of my head which episode it was. It may have been, yes, I will. It was 2 episodes ago. So it was episode 4. We did an episode on boundaries. So I encourage our listeners, if that is true for you, if you feel as though boundaries is where you need the most help in terms of asking for help and setting up those boundaries, check out that podcast. And I also teach a class called Boundaries Bootcamp. I teach it once a year, and I taught that class 2 weeks ago, and it's in the vault of HR Empower Hour. So HR Empower Hour members have access to not only learning about boundaries, but you literally go through a coaching sequence and you walk away with a whole new approach to setting boundaries, which is really, really cool. So there's just so many opportunities for our listeners to learn a little bit more about boundaries, learn a little bit more about time management. I quite literally, as you were talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to look at a list of our upcoming podcasts. And
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be talking about the busyness badge next week. We're going to be talking about time next week. So it's interesting you bring that up. Self-care, I think, is so interwoven. And then mental, having the 3 must-haves for our mental health, we're going to be covering in April. So I just encourage our listeners to keep coming back because this podcast is designed to help. If you haven't figured out, Jen and I want to help, and we can help. We can be those resources who are approachable. That's where my mind went. I don't know if that's where it should have gone, but that's where my mind just went.
That's no, that's exactly where it should have gone. Thank you so much for, reminding everyone of resources that are out there, especially, your HR Empower Hour and, the weekly calls that you do Tuesdays, right? Typically.
Yeah, Tuesdays at 2 Eastern, HR Empower
Yeah.
Hour. It's clockwork.
Yeah. So awesome. So awesome. So with that, the next question is
Yeah.
really like, if we could break it down to just one or two things, what
Okay.
advice would you give to the women out there when it comes to asking for help? It's kind of just high level.
High level, I think you're not alone. You're not alone. This is so common, especially for HR practitioners, to not ask for help. And it's never too early or too late to start developing the skills that are associated with asking for help, the confidence, the assertion, the advocacy. Those are all skills. They're all related to asking for help. So it's never too late. And I think at a super high level, just know that understanding that your brain's just doing what it's designed to do. It's just trying to keep you safe. That's all your brain is doing when you refrain from asking for help, right? If you have that tendency to hold back. If a lot of what Jen has shared today and what I've shared today has really resonated, just know you're not alone and there's nothing wrong. And when we do take action, when we start to negate those negative thoughts, that's where our power is. That's when we start seeing success. And those are all just high level keys for asking for help and getting the help that we need. And knowing and being effective in teaching our employees all of those related skills to also ask for help for themselves as well. I went real
Nice.
high level. What about you? What about
No,
you?
I'm similarly high level. I think, just like you said, that everyone listening, everyone watching, nobody is alone in this.
No.
And the more that we can talk about it, the more that we can really just be able to kind of get this stuff out and have these conversations and recognize how much, how much we are kind of in this together. It's a process, and there's not going to be perfect days. I think it's going to take time, and to be able to like have have that time to build within excuse me, the build within yourself, that courage to kind of step
Yeah.
out. Like you said, it is in the action, and I think it is in that practice of asking for help, of putting ourselves out there, of starting to flex those muscles a little bit more and more, and then something miraculous happens. And that's when we start to really start to believe and
Yeah.
start to really kind of feel the results of that. And so it's just a matter of kind of step by step and knowing that others are right there along with you. And the more that we can kind of pull each other in and build community and connection and belonging,
Yeah.
I think the more comfortable we're going to get and the more unstoppable we're going to be here in the next few years.
Oh my gosh. And I love that word unstoppable. That song I think it's by Sia. I'm
Yeah.
unstoppable. I mean, I just want to blast it on my car 24 hours a day.
Well,
That
how about
song still resonates.
How about we play that at the beginning of our retreat when we
I
have one someday, right?
Yes.
Like, we
Yes.
are unstoppable, and anybody who we would work with or anyone listening to this podcast or this live, you are unstoppable. And we just have to get out of our own way, and we have to, realize how much value we have to add. And yeah, it's so beautiful, and it's scary, and that's why we need each other.
That's totally why we need each other. And where I sort of go to the next level is what I find with my clients is they want tangible tools. They want tools for their
Mhm.
HR toolkit. So I think oftentimes, when we talk at that high level, people are still wondering, well, how? I get the why. I get why it's so important. I get the derivative. I understand the socialization, but how do I actually do it? How do I actually build that skill of confidence? How do I actually ask for help? And so that's where I turn into a total geek. And I'm super proud to be an HR nerd and HR geek. And I develop these very, very tangible tools. So HR AAA is just that. It's a 3-step framework to asking for help, and it helps people who have a tendency to not ask for help. It also helps people who ask for help and aren't getting it, and it also helps with that third thing that you brought up today, which I love, is helping employees get help for themselves, teaching all of those related skills. So that's what HR Empower Hour happens to be about tomorrow. And for anyone who just is listening to this podcast and you're like, oh, I wish I knew what that was. Just know that tool is always available in the vault of HR Empower Hour. And I'm happy to share it. Always.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap up with our last question. So,
Okay.
how can we continue to push ourselves and others into having more conversations just like this so we can normalize asking for help? All of it's kind of come full circle, hasn't it?
I love that. And my secret to this is, as opposed to focusing on what you don't want, focusing on the fear, recognizing when you're being motivated by fear versus when you're being inspired by what you do want. For example, if you want help with, I'm going to use a really funny example because it is dumping snow here in Colorado. And here's just like a personal example that won't tap on the emotional heartstrings too much, but if you're digging out your car, is it, I don't want to be stuck literally and figuratively. I'm getting frustrated. I'm so afraid I'm going to be stuck and I'm not going to get to my appointment, versus I cannot wait to get to that appointment and really, coach my client. Right. So when we shift out of fear and out of scarcity and go into abundance and what we do want, just that shift, just that narrative in our brain of, well, of course I need to get my car out because I really need to get to this appointment. And when we start coming from help from that standpoint, we're just going to show up differently to the person that we need to be asking for help. There's literally people outside Brett's place right now. I'm at Brett's place and they're shoveling and I'm just listening to the plows going. And it's just a matter of asking for help and focusing on what you do want. It's always the shift in my brain. And that's the shift I hope my clients make all the time too. What about you?
I
What
love that. Oh my gosh. No, I love that so much. I think that's absolutely it. And I think that's where so many of us sometimes feel powerless, right? Like we feel helpless to our circumstances. And yet at any time, it's available to us to shift our mindset from a surviving to a thriving, right?
Yes,
And so we talked about last week, you and I getting a little bit triggered about like this victim mentality, but truly there's something to be said in it. And it's not about shaming and judging or, throwing opinions at anybody. It's really about, hey, y'all, if we can kind of take this framework that we're looking at in front of us and perhaps like shift the dial a couple notches, you are, it really changes everything. And I think that that's where a lot of us get stuck, is not recognizing our own empowerment within our circumstances.
Yeah.
And so that easily within and of itself is something that I think asking for help is hugely beneficial in, because especially when we're in the muck itself, it's almost like quicksand, right? When we're in the muck, we cannot see, it's very difficult to really have full access to our senses when we're overwhelmed, when we're in flight, freeze, fawn, when we're in all it's very difficult for us to be fully aware of it. And that's where having others around us, being able to have a gut check partner, being able to have those that we can feel comfortable enough to ask for help. And if you're struggling right now to have those, if you struggle to know who those are, that's okay, right? We got to start somewhere, but
Yep.
just start. And that, I think, is my biggest advice to anyone, is those who feel like their feet are stuck in sticky quicksand.
Yeah. Yeah.
But those who really feel stuck, I think taking that first step and recognizing how empowering it can be to just start putting one foot in front of the other. Oh, it's like, it's so much, of me wants right now to give the big hug to those out
I
there who really truly
know.
feel and believe that they, are stuck and don't know what to do, because that confusion is real. That
Yes.
overwhelm is real. And
Yes.
so how to help others who kind of get stuck in that place is really difficult. And so until we ourselves can start kind of getting out of that place and start reaching out in some capacity, very unlikely things will shift. A lot of times people don't even realize how much others are suffering, right? We're all kind of in our own world. And so
Yes.
until we can find our voice in some way, it doesn't have to be your vocal voice. Write an email, send a message, an IM to somebody and just say, hey, do you have 5 minutes at lunch? Can you think we can jump on a quick call? Something that simple can change everything. So I just encourage anyone who struggles with feeling stuck in some way to take a step today.
That's exactly right. I love that. Small hinges swing big doors. Take a
Not
small step today. And that small step could yield a life and a career and things you just cannot imagine right now because you are so stuck. You don't
Yeah.
have to go from I can't to I can. It's I can't to I can't unless I can't yet. Just I love that you said moving the dial.
Yeah.
That hit me hard this morning. Thank you for that nugget of gold. It's just moving the dial a little bit, just a
Yeah.
little bit.
I think
And
it's massively helpful for
yes,
those who really feel paralyzed in
oh
their
my
stuff.
God.
And I understand it. Like, I have so much empathy for it. I'm working with a few people where I work right now who are very much in that
Yeah,
paralyzed place.
yeah,
And so that's been a metaphor that's kind of helped for me, because it's like, no, you can
yes,
still kind of stand right where you are
yep.
and ease that dial just as slowly as you want to ease it. But you want to start kind of ticking it just as, however you can. And it works, I think, because people need those metaphors sometimes that really can relate to help them feel a little less unsafe, a little less scared.
I love that. Coming back
Yeah,
to psychological safety. I love that.
I think I think we'll hit on psychological safety on each and every one of the episodes of Thrive and Shine HR.
Pretty sure. Pretty sure it's imperative.
I'm pretty sure it's going to come up.
Maybe once or twice.
Well, as we wrap up, I mean, is there anything, Catherine, I've gotten through the questions, is there anything around asking for help that you feel inspired to share?
Oh, I mean, it's a little self-serving. And yet it has this massive ripple effect. I think that this is obviously our 6th episode. And in order for us to be able to reach larger audiences, in order for us to be able to help other HR professionals who are in survival mode and they want to get to thrival mode, I guess the way the whole podcast thing works is if people can subscribe or follow, rate, and review, those 3 steps are really, really critical for our listenership to grow. And once our listenership starts to grow, you and I are going to achieve our dream of having this massive impact on people and helping HR professionals really thrive and really shine in HR and in our personal lives. So that would be my only, kind of, it's selfish, but unselfish because it has a massive ripple effect.
I don't think you could have asked that ask with more humility. I, I'm like so impressed. I wanna go do it right now. No,
Me
I
too.
think thank you for that. Yeah, I mean the liking, the sharing, the downloading of the podcast, all of that will get the momentum going around the impact that that you and I really want to make. And I'm really, really excited about that. Yes, there's that little bit of selfishness in it, but it's also, I think we are here to serve and
For
we
you.
have something of matter that the more that we are, here we are only in episode 6 and you and I are chomping at the bit to be able to record episodes at this point because what we're sharing, this matters. And
It
so
matters.
the more that we can grow the audience, the more that we can get it out there in the world, the more that this is going to be a phenomenon, right? This normalization of talking about our own wants, needs, and desires in order to become our most authentic selves. It's like, I think it's just, the dream is coming true. So one thing that I'll share too is
Yeah.
we had launched, you and I, a LinkedIn group. So for those who are not familiar with it, this LinkedIn group, Thrive and Shine HR, is also something we'd love for you to check out and subscribe to that page as well. Because once we get to 150 followers, then that will allow us to start broadcasting live on Mondays in that group. So that's another place that we want to start broadcasting because that will definitely help expand our reach.
I love that. I love that. And that's just a no-brainer. So if all of our listeners do it, we're there, which is fantastic. So
Well, listen, I don't know if yesterday I put a funky link. So I posted something in the Women of HR support group on
yeah.
Facebook and put a link that didn't work. And boy, oh boy, did a lot of people respond to that. So we went from, I think it was started the day at like 50 subscribers on that
Okay.
LinkedIn page and ended the day at 98. So
You
I was
doubled the followers.
It doubled the followers in one day because I put something out there about, hey, follow Thrive and Shine HR on LinkedIn. And then it was a bad link. So most of the comments were bad link, bad link, bad link. So I
Because they want to
immediately,
help.
right. So I immediately put in the better link, but it kind of then just blew up organically from originally starting out as being
That's
a bum
amazing.
link.
That's amazing.
So,
You're making me think of another nugget that I'd be remiss if I did not bring this up. Human beings are wired to want to help.
yeah.
We want
Yeah.
to help. So we're standing in our own way when we don't ask for that help. Because look at all the people whose hands went up yesterday who wanted to help you, Jen.
Yeah.
People want to help. So we truly just have to get out of our own way.
Yeah.
100% of the time. It's
Right.
wild. Yeah.
Wild, wild, and so much fun. If we can start, like you said, have a little playfulness, have a little fun with it, right? Like if we can kind of just get off our little high horse and just have a little fun with, not getting it right all the time, and putting something out there that's gonna be a mess. And,
Yeah.
like, so there's so much I think that when we can kind of bring in a little playfulness and bring in a little silliness, then it doesn't have to be so heavy all the time. I think, and so that's where I want to leave us today.
Ah, love that. Levity and light. Levity and light.
Levity and light. And so, well, next week, as Catherine
Levity.
mentioned a little while ago, oh, love it. As Catherine, you mentioned a little bit ago, next week is going to be about busyness and breaking the spell that so many of us have around busyness, never having enough time. And how do we really become so much more intentional with our time? So you want
Ah,
to share a little bit about what we can anticipate for next week?
um, it goes back to the narrative that's rooted in self-doubt that leads to carrying around that busyness as a badge. We
Mm,
think that we have to be busy, that busy correlates with our value, that we have to be everything to everyone all the time, and that is just not possible. And in fact, It's detrimental to our physical, mental, and emotional health, but also to the health of those around us. So it's imperative that we start ditching that busyness. And there are so many, there's so much thought work around it, but there's actually some really tangible tools that are quick and easy that can make a huge difference in, ironically, a very short amount of time.
Nice. I look forward to it.
Me too. I can't wait.
We'll get
I wish
to
it were next week.
just what's that?
I wish it were next week already. I always leave these like, can we just keep going? Can we just keep going into the next episode?
Well, we'll be there soon enough. Well, in between now and next week, we will get out another poll. We'll ask you some question about what busyness looks like for you, kind of do some gut checking. And with that, we want to thank you so much for joining today. And don't forget, everybody, every day is a new opportunity to thrive and shine in HR. Bye, everybody.
Bye.